Australia is in recession. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heiser here and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I'm just relaxing, working away. Just finished a video recently about our GDP falling 0.3%, when our Treasurer has publicly confirmed that Australia is in a recession. Before we've technically got the data to prove it, he's putting it out there. Because, frankly, what we looked at from the ABS with regard to the March 2020 GDP fall only started to touch upon the beginnings of this economic lockdown we're all experiencing because of the pandemic. So he's confirmed that we are in the first recession we have had since the recession Australia had to have. We have a generation that were probably not even born or were still barely a few years old when those famous words were uttered. I'm sure there are a whole lot of viewers that remember the last recession and are prepared and ready for it. A whole lot of people who've got no idea what a recession entails. Let's have a look at what Frydenberg is saying. So, honestly, I'm a little surprised. I thought they would have held off on even uttering the R word until it was officially declared, hoping that they might be able to pull the economy up. But it's good to see a dose of realism from our politicians. Maybe they need to justify all the drastic measures they're doing, and it just shows you they'll be throwing more and more at this housing bubble, I think. It'll be interesting to see what comes out from the government. So it's official, or it's been declared by the Treasurer. There's still this month. If this month goes gangbusters, if all the restrictions, disappear and then people go out there and rush and spend enough to get us even a tiny bit of GDP growth, we may avoid it, but I seriously doubt that. So it's official. Australia has entered a recession for the first time in 29 years. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg declared today he did not need to wait until the June quarter to admit the obvious. Is Australia in a recession today? Mr. Frydenberg said. The answer was clear. Well, the answer to that is yes. And that is the basis of the advice that I have from the Treasury Department about where the June quarter is expected to be, he said. Buying panic by families as the pandemic hit failed to save Australia from a technical recession, because that's all eased up. If you go to the shops now, it's all pretty normal, particularly with goods. You can actually get toilet paper now. Some economists had speculated that last-minute buying might save the economy from going backwards in the March quarter. That only includes a few weeks of business shutdowns. See, and that's the thing, looking at the March figures, it felt like we were just discussing the bushfires. We were seeing the impact of the bushfires on the economy more than this pandemic. Remember, guys, we had a big bushfire season. We started the year with all the concerns about that, and then everything else just hit the fan. 2020 definitely is going to be a year that'll be remembered. Must be the double zeros, the 2020s. Instead, the Australian economy shrank by 0.3% over the first 3 months of the year, according to today's national accounts. And I will link to my video up above where we go through some of the interesting figures there, and I'm just writing down the time. That's the first quarterly contraction since 2011, when cyclone activity shut down business in Queensland and Western Australia. National account figures from the ABS also showed annual GDP growth slowed from 2.2% to 1.4%. The definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, a requirement that is certain to be met in the June quarter, which will include the economy-wide shutdowns ordered to save lives and protect the community from the pandemic. Mr. Frydenberg said Australia's performance was outstanding considering the nation was facing an economic Armageddon. An economic Armageddon. So we're starting to have mainstream politicians use these terms. Well, and he's right. It's what we're facing. Less than 100 days ago, our nation was on the edge of an economic cliff, he said. The number of cases of the pandemic was increasing by more than 20% per day. Treasury were contemplating a fall in GDP of more than 20% in the June quarter. This was the Economist's version of Armageddon. To illustrate how bad we thought it could get, we purchased 5,500 ventilators, but today there's just one person in an Australian hospital on a ventilator as a result of the pandemic. Well, there you go. There you go. We seem to have skirted the worst of this. I suspect it has a lot to do with our population density, among other things. Perhaps our lifestyle, where we live outdoors a lot more. I mean, just the population density of Australia. You compare it to some of these other countries with drastic figures. It's a big difference. Mr. Frydenberg said the dramatic falls in spending in the March quarter were some of the largest on record in decades. While fear of a lockdown saw panic buying of food and household items, total consumption still fell by 1.1% in the quarter, he said. Well, yeah, if you got rid of the panic buying, it would be double that. This is the largest quarterly decline in consumption in 34 years. Spending on transport services, hotels, cafes and restaurants experienced their largest falls on record. Their largest falls on record. So Frydenberg will now be remembered as, well, he needs to have a catchy phrase. You know, the recession Australia had to have. That's what Keating had. What's Frydenberg going to say? What could it be? The recession Australia caught. Let's have a look at what the ABC is saying about this. Australia will record its first recession in 29 years as March quarter GDP shrinks. GDP figures from the ABS showed Australia's economy shrank 0.3% in the March quarter amid bushfire in early stages of the pandemic. Exactly, that's it. This makes it certain that Australia will suffer its first recession in 29 years as the full impact of the pandemic shutdowns occurred during the current June quarter. Economists widely define a recession as 2 consecutive quarters of GDP contraction, which are now certain to occur. I think it's going to be impossible for Australia to pull out of this recession. Economic Armageddon avoided, Frydenberg says. Well, here's the thing. Has it been avoided or has it been stalled until September, until JobKeeper disappears, until the mortgage holidays disappears? I suspect it's going to be impossible for the banks and for the governments to just switch all these things off. I think they're going to have to phase into something else or ease it out. The banks do not want mass forced sales because that's going to affect their balance sheet. It's going to affect the value of their assets. They're not going to want to do it. Treasury were contemplating a fall in GDP of more than 20%. So it was in this quarter, the March quarter, that consumer and business confidence fell to its lowest level on record. The ASX 200 lost a third of its value, and on the 16th of March saw its biggest day fall of 9.7% on record. And if we bring that up here, we can just see consumer confidence. Well, after that, in April, is in the gutter. And unemployment has shot up, and business confidence and conditions are also terrible. So we'll need to see where this is all going. Australia is now pretty much officially in a recession. Technically, they don't have the data to officially declare it, but if the Treasurer is saying it, I mean, they were hoping that the mass buying would be enough to pull us out in March and that they could contain this economic lockdown to this quarter. But we'll have to, I don't think it's possible. I do not see how, with the amount of lockdowns and economic restrictions that have occurred in this quarter right now that we're in, that it will be turned around. I mean, you still can't even cross the borders from New South Wales to Queensland at the moment. You still can't even do it. So, there you have it, everyone. Australia is pretty much in a recession, or is in a recession, and it's been acknowledged by our Treasurer. We'll just have to wait for the confirmation at the end of this quarter. But I can't say I'm surprised, and I don't think a lot of people watching would be either. How is this going to affect their economic stimulus? That'll be the next thing to watch. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you'd like to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can simply watch, comment, and subscribe. Share the content around. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon for a small fee. You can support us via using our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and KuCoin. You can buy our merch from Heiser Says, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Thanks everyone. I'll see you later. Bye for now.